latest episode of our webinar series. Transatlantic Talks featuring renowned guests from the United States discussing bilateral issues between our two great nations. Today, we are so pleased to be joined by the Honorable Francis Suarez, the Mayor of Miami, Florida. He is accompanied by TAİK's distinguished Florida Chairman, Mr. Cüneyt Zapsu. Mayor Suarez served as the City of the Miami Commissioner for District 4 from 2009 until 2017, when he was overwhelmingly elected as the 43rd mayor in Miami history. Mayor Suarez is the first Miami-born mayor in the city's history and also serves as the chair of the Environmental Committee of U.S. Conference of Mayors. He's been lauded for his planning and leadership as the coronavirus pandemic reached southern Florida. We are so pleased to have him here with us today to discuss how Turkey and the Miami metropolitan region can work together to build stronger economic and cultural ties. As I mentioned earlier, we are also joined today by Mr. Cüneyt Zapsu, a Turkish businessman and a man I am proud to call a friend. He and I have a very long history together. In addition to managing his consulting firm in Turkey, he owns an export business based in Florida. So he doesn't only travel to Miami for the incredible weather, but also for business. He will also share his insights throughout the webinar, and we are happy to have him join us. Before I turn it over to Mr. Zapsu and Mayor Suarez, I would like to make some brief remarks. The entire world still faces an unprecedented situation, one which has no simple solutions, nor do we yet understand the timeline by which the world will return to how it was before the pandemic, or even if it can return to how it was previously. But what we do know is that Turkey continues to seek out and support bilateral trade across the world, particularly with the United States. Since the onset of the pandemic, Turkey has done everything in its power to ensure that the gears of our economy do not slow down. We are also strongly aware that those nations that can remain an integral and consistent part of the world supply chain during this extraordinary time. Turkey and the United States are best positioned to succeed economically once the pandemic is addressed at a sufficient level to allow national economies to reopen fully. Furthermore, public-private partnerships, the types of which that Turkey and Miami can and should pursue together, will become essential to rebuilding economies post-coronavirus. Finally, Turkey and Miami are well-known destinations for international tourism. In fact, Miami and Antalya in Turkey are sister cities and similar in their own metropolitan economies. There are so many opportunities, economic, cultural, humanitarian, that we can seek out as partners. We see much opportunities for Turkey and the US and Florida specifically to seek out new ways to increase bilateral trade by making intensive efforts to diversify our economic relationship into sectors like aerospace, agriculture, and tourism. That process begins with discussions like this, with leaders like Mayor Suarez. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Zapsu to begin our full discussion. Thank you all for joining us today, and welcome again, Mayor Francis Suarez of Miami, Florida. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, welcome. This meeting in Miami, I would wish that. But I think we're still a bit far from this opportunity, but we have to do the Zoom instead. Anyway, welcome Mr. Francis Suarez to TAİK, the Turkey-US Business Council. As Mehmet Ali Bey just said, I am chairing the best part of it. That's Florida and Miami. So And we have a few guests, I believe, here with us who are listening or watching into. We are in this webinar. There are some Turkish origin and some who are from the US business community. And surely there are some joining us from Turkey, from the Turkish business community. And Mr. Mayor, I have a few questions in mind. Shall I put them through or shall we do Q&A? However you wish.
No, however you wish. I'd be happy to answer whatever questions you have.
Okay, cool. So let's start. I have, of course, maybe you're fed up with all the people asking you over and over about your experience with overcoming the COVID-19. But for those who may not know, who are with us now, Mr. Suarez was one of the first who encountered the virus in Miami, at least what we know. I think after this famous Brazilian event, and immediately self-quarantined. I guess it was mid-March. And but for those of us who have not experienced that, is there anything you would like to share?
You know, I guess for me it was instructive. I learned from the situation a variety of lessons about leadership, about transparency, about frankly, some of it was good fortune in the sense that, as you said, I was asymptomatic and had it not become public that a member of the Brazilian delegation that I was in contact with the week of March 12th, that person had tested positive. I probably wouldn't have gotten tested, which means that it maybe would have infected my family. I maybe would have infected members of my city. And thankfully, because the doctors were very proactive, I was able to, they tested about 40 or 50 people and all of them tested negative. So what we know about the virus is that for some, you know, particularly people who are healthy and young, oftentimes they have very little symptoms or not severe symptoms. And that was the case with me. But there's a lot of variability. I've seen a lot of families where, they have, the entire family got sick and different members of the family felt it in different ways. And so I'm very fortunate that my family didn't have to go through with that, even though I had to go through 18 days of quarantine, which was tough.
Okay, and we all know it's not over yet.
No.
But now a little different question, and maybe you know, I had also a little political history behind me, so I know how hard it is to govern in such crisis situations. Mr. Mayor, you were chosen with a record vote. I think it was 86?
86.
Okay. Do you think you will be able to maintain your popularity? Because Miami is a very, very tough place to contain such a virus. Its beaches, its lifestyle, and everywhere is so hard that you would for sure need the help of the feds. Otherwise, with the city taxes going low and you need to help them, I mean, do you have any special magic technique how you want to manage that?
Well, mathematically, it's problematic, right? Because I have 86% to go down and only 14% to go up. So it's a little bit hard to be able to improve on the 86%. But listen, I think a lot of it has to do with managing relationships. I've been fortunate that through this crisis, my commission has coalesced. We've come together as a city, and I think that is incredibly important. When you're able to work with your colleagues, when you're able to get things done, I think that's when your popularity level goes up. I think when you're in political fights and battles constantly, it's very, very difficult to get your popularity level up. I try to use the confidence of the people to get things done. And I've learned a lot from that as well. And I've learned that I think one of the most important things that as a mayor that you need to do is make sure that you have relationships with your council. And so I've been working a lot on that in the last few months, and it's been very fruitful. Very happy about it. No magic though.
Okay, but what about what about the help, the financial help? Do you think that you can get it?
You know, it's interesting. We obviously are taking a big hit as a government. Our hit is about, right now we have it estimated at about $20 million. But that all depends on how long the crisis lasts. You know, right now we just started yesterday, phase 1 of the reopening. And so, you know, depending on how quickly the reopening happens and how quickly our economy gets going again, that number will either grow or shrink. And so we were doing phenomenally well before the crisis. I mean, my first year as mayor, we grew 8.5%. My second year as mayor, we grew 10.5%. And at the same time, we had the lowest homicide rates in a lifetime. So, you know, the city was safer than ever. And we had reduced taxes to the second lowest level in 50 years. So taxes were low, safety was at an all-time high, and growth was doing very, very well. We actually had a big budget surplus going into the pandemic. So listen, we're hopeful that we're able to get it back on track quickly, and understanding that, you know, a big part of our economy is tourism and mass aggregation events and stuff like that. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge.
Okay. I wish we would have that budget surplus when we were here in Turkey going into that. Anyway, but you know, everywhere in the world, especially for you, governing pieces, saving lives is obviously the foremost concern, clear. But life has to go on. And some measures of containment are likely to result in widespread poverty, which will take far more lives than the virus itself. So that's a dilemma. And how do you mingle in between?
It's very difficult, very delicate. You know, on the one hand, like you said, you want to make sure that your government is doing everything you can to protect people and protect their safety and their health. On the other hand, we've never had something that has been able to paralyze the world economy like this. This is unprecedented. So, you know, I think, you know, we're going to look back on this, and you know, the way I look at it is, it's kind of like our first hurricane. It's like the first hurricane that we've had, where we learn a variety of lessons, how to prepare better. We learn what to do, what not to do. And so my suspicion is that, you know, it won't be COVID-19. There will be another pandemic in the not so distant future. We see that with natural disasters. We see that with terrorist attacks. We see that with mass shootings. We see that with natural disasters. You know, it's not just one. There's usually one in a series of events. The good news is that, relatively speaking, you know, we've been proactive and we've taken a lot of steps. As you said, it's difficult because it creates a paralytic effect on the economy, and that is something that we have to continue to look at and analyze and determine whether you know, steps that we took were too dramatic or not, you know, or whether, had we not taken those steps, which is the part, this is the part that gets complicated. Had we not taken those steps, what would have happened? And I think that's the part that sometimes people have a hard time understanding.
Yeah, but it's really, I mean, I don't want to be in your shoes right now. When I think of Miami, all the gastronomy, all the hotels, I mean, 20 million is nothing, right?
Yeah, 20 million is the impact on the government right now. This is that's not the impact on the economy. The impact on the economy is devastating. You know what I mean? I mean, we went from full employment, where our unemployment levels were at historic lows, you know, 3%, 4%, to 20%, 15% unemployment, which are historic highs. So it's a huge shift in the pendulum, and government cannot and will not be able to sustain an economy. That's just not the way it works in the U.S. You know, it's government can do things in the short term, for a month, for 2 months, etc., but it definitely cannot sustain an economy for the long term.
Well, coming back to the Turkish side, maybe you know, maybe you don't, but we have a pretty large community of people with Turkish origin in Florida, and especially also in Miami. And Turks, both as private citizens and through businesses, have purchased a good deal of real estate in the area. And aside from those who have already interested and invested, a lot of people in Turkey are interested in both Florida and Miami in particular. And do you think there is still opportunities that might be for Turkey-based private and business people to catch?
Absolutely. I think obviously now is a good time to buy. You know, buying after events like this is usually a good moment because people sometimes may need cash. They may need to divest for whatever reasons. And I think the resiliency of our economy is proven over decades, over generations. And I think, you know, what Miami has is something that very few people have. We have a combination of low taxes, no state income tax, you know, incredible weather, incredible industry, and we're getting better and better every day. Our generation, my generation, is really differentiating itself and the generation coming after me by focusing a tremendous amount on tech, which is something that we were focusing on in terms of differentiating our and diversifying our economy. And that's something we're making a tremendous amount of progress on. We're going to continue to make progress on. Yesterday, I was on the phone with someone who's turning over the Latin American headquarters to Spotify in the next weeks for their build out. So, you know, Miami, this is going to obviously impact our city, like it will impact every city in the world. But I think if you look at how recessions and how bubble bursts, like the real estate bubble bursts, have all affected cities in America, the city that rebounds the fastest is usually Miami.
Do you think the downtown area, Brickell, will be hurt more?
No, I don't think so. I think, you know, people find it very attractive. I think, you know, we're opening our restaurants in less than a week. And I think, you know, people will start to go to the restaurants little by little. I think that one of the things that we're doing, and this may be a healthy evolution, is we're looking at expanding capacity of restaurants on sidewalks and even on streets. And I do think that that could end up creating a more pedestrian-friendly city, which is something that, frankly, I think all cities are going to be evolving to more pedestrian-friendly friendliness. And I think, you know, because of this pandemic, one of the good things that has come out of it is this precisely what we're doing right now. I mean, how difficult would it be for us to do what we're doing right now? You know, having broadcasting this and having this kind of attendance, it's complex, and this makes it very efficient, very easy. I mean, I can come in. It looks like I'm, you know, officially in my office, and this is very official. The truth is, I'm at home, and I'm in my closet. That's actually where I am. So, so it's just an amazing, you know, ability to be. You know, the word in English is ubiquitous, to be everywhere at once. It's incredible, and I think that's something that's going to be a positive, lasting legacy from this pandemic.
Well, Mr. Mayor, maybe you know, maybe you don't. I lived, and I'm still living 2/3 of my life abroad, and therefore I'm aware of the type of perception people here in the States, in Florida and Miami, have of my country. And until Americans visit Turkey for themselves, many still think of Turkey as a place where camels roam, where men have 4 wives, women either wear hijabs or belly dancing outfits. And I'm not joking, you know that, that's the reality. Do you have any advice on how Turkey can change this genie in a bottle desert land image and develop relationships within the greater Miami business community? What to do?
I think for me, it's all about, I think for me, what I've learned in my life is it's all people-to-people contact. What you're seeing in Miami, as you said, is a tremendous amount of investment from the Turkish community. And once that happens, you start to get to know people, you meet people. For example, we have the Okan Tower that's being built in our city. Hopefully those sales of those units are being made to Turkish people from Turkey. And they'll come to Miami, and so they'll integrate. So I think the biggest issue, more than anything, is integration. It's you know, the fact that, you know, having direct flights, having people that come on a regular basis. I think that to me is, people get demystified by things that they don't know, by things that they never experienced. And so I think the more you know, Turkish influence, investment, and people that are here in Miami, the faster that perception, to the extent that it exists, at least here in Miami, will change.
Okay. Do you have any idea what's the fastest growing industry right now is in Southern Florida?
Well, construction is always one that's very, very high, and obviously tourism is another one that is incredibly strong up until now. But the one that we're trying to catalyze is technology. I believe that in my generation, the prior generation, subsequent generation, it's going to be a predominantly tech-based economy. And so we're trying to do everything that we can by supporting things like Emerge, which is a tech conference, one of the largest tech conferences in the southern United States, Endeavor Miami, 500 startups, which are incubator and mentorship type of programs to help entrepreneurs and to help tech entrepreneurs to be successful here in the city and continue to develop technologies that are solutions for our everyday problems.
And we in Turkey, we already started developing links and ties for business relations between our Florida and Turkey. And for 2 years already, we have been in close contact with Enterprise Florida and Bacon Council. I'm pretty sure you know them both. And what kind of actions or what could we should we pursue to enhance the commercial diplomacy between us?
You know, I think those are two good agencies. I think as we see successful projects like the Okan Tower, which I'm sure will be successful, that will happen naturally. But I think, you know, obviously getting to know forums like this where people get to know the mayor and get to know how receptive we are in the city to receive Turkish investment, to have Turkish tourism, and to have the Turkish people here living in the city. I think that's important. Sometimes it's just a matter of feeling appreciated and feeling invited. And that sometimes is something that we take for granted, but it's important for us to do.
Okay, and I want to mention, I'm pretty sure you know our Consul General, Burç Bey,
Awesome.
who really, yeah, he is awesome. And we're very lucky with him, I think. So one more thing, of course, last not but least, tourism, huge part of your economy. And of course, Miami is one of the world's top destination cities. And in Turkey, we have a master plan. I mean, the government has a master plan, but every week, for the opening, I mean, and every week they change it. They keep on fine-tune it. As an example, we are aiming to reopen the international flights out of Turkey around the 10th of June. Yesterday they said 10th of June, but we don't know yet which countries to. Maybe possibly first to Germany or Scandinavia, I don't know. Do you have something like that in Miami, a reopening plan? Any time frames yet?
We do. We have something called Standup Miami or Standup Miami Plan. It doesn't involve so much airport flights because we in the city don't control Miami International Airport. And frankly, in terms of international flights, that's really controlled by the FAA, which is federal. And that I believe there's obviously some European countries where there is a travel ban, but you know, obviously China, not just European, but Asian, European countries, China, and other countries that may be under a ban right now. And I know that the president is considering some potential action with regard to Brazil. But other than that, my understanding is that our airport is taking in international passengers regularly. And so I don't think that there's anything necessary that needs to change other than those few countries that are banned right now. I just think that people are somewhat, and understandably so, probably apprehensive about traveling right now. And so that's just going to take time as we come out of this and start reopening. Our reopening plan has 3 phases, like the federal and state one. We're in phase 1 right now. We'll be in phase 2, assuming that everything goes well in 14 days. And then assuming everything goes well after that, we'll be in phase 3, 14 days later. So we're hoping that in about a month, if everything goes well, we'll be sort of, you know, in phase 3.
In a month.
Yeah.
So let's say July, hopefully everything should be over, huh? Hopefully.
That's the hope.
Yeah. And I mean, I've got tons of others, but when I look to my watch, I'm half German, or not half German, I'm thinking in German. So if you have anything to ask me or anything, something together with Turkey, I'm ready for it.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think for me, what I'd like to know is what can we do in the city of Miami? Obviously, one of the things that we've thought about is planning a delegation trip to Turkey at some point in the future. But what should we be doing in the city to continue to showcase our city to Turkey and to the rest of the world?
Okay. Thank you for that question, because you can be sure that I'm coming to that, because normally we are doing 1 to 2 events. We are planning to do 1 to 2 events in Miami, and with event I mean gathering all together all the business communities who have something to do, who have something in common, and bringing in people like yourself. I hope you will have still time then, and speak to them about investments. Even I'm thinking even of cultural events. We did already 3 events in Miami last time. I think 3-4 months ago. We had Mr. Ulukaya, Hamdi Ulukaya Chobani.
Yeah.
He was with us, and we had a nice event together with him. And I will take your word on that. Thank you for that.
So we have a question from Kareem Azakwai. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name.
Junaid Zapsu.
How do you pronounce it?
Okay, Junaid, it's like the month of June and then an 8. June.
No, but this is from Kareem.
From somebody in the, there's a question from someone.
Yes, it's he's talking about tourism and how can we promote tourism? And obviously the Greater Miami Visitors and Conventions Bureau has produced a video and has created a campaign around, restarting tourism. I would say, like you said, probably for the next month, it's going to be touch and go. And I'm hopeful that, as the news gets better, that, hopefully we have less cases and less incidents and it's safer to travel, we'll start to see that naturally go back up. Obviously, our hotels are, closed, not by order of the city, but by order of the county. I'm not a big fan of having the hotels closed. I think that they can serve a tremendous purpose. So I personally think that they should be open. But that's something that we're not able to do right now in the city, but we're definitely pushing the county to try to open them as quickly as possible.
Okay. There's another one, I think, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, here's another one. There's a couple of them. What will it be? City of Miami support during post-pandemic to the cruise industry? Well, that's a good one. The cruise industry is one that obviously has been devastated because of the nature of what they do. And, again, that's one where, and I tell this to restaurants all the time. When you have cases in your business, or someone is sick, whether it's a chef, whether it's a server, or just a customer, you are in a very complicated situation, because in theory you should need to disclose that to the public, because if you don't and there's an outbreak, you can get sued. We need to do that for contact tracing. So when something happens like what happened with the cruise industry, I think the biggest issue for the cruise industry is they're going to have to regain people's confidence that, if something, if you're going on a cruise, it's safe to be able to go on it, and that they have policies and procedures to contain any sort of an outbreak that could happen on board, and that they have a plan to get people off. I think one of the big issues obviously was people that were stuck on board, and whether or not they have sufficient, medical, capacity and training to be able to help people who are sick on board. So they have a lot of work to do there without a doubt. I think there's another one here, mentioned 500 startups as an incubating investment program for startups in the Turk. I'd be curious to know whether Mr. Mayor would be open to encourage to promote startups that have been founded by Absolutely. I'd absolutely encourage those startups that have been founded by Turks, by any nationality, really. I think what's great about our city is Miami is more than a city, it's an idea. And it's a collection of people that come around, that sort of coalesce around this identity of being diverse, of being cosmopolitan, of being world citizens. So I absolutely would encourage, non-U.S. citizens who are Turks or from any other nationality from applying for 500 startup help. And if you have a good business or a good idea that you want us to look at and potentially to support, let us know. Send us an email. Create a meeting with us, and we'll be happy to analyze it for you.
I have here one. Junaid, why did you select Miami as your base? Honestly, really, I mean, well, dear all, I'm blessed. I have 3 daughters, and daughter number 1 was studying in Tufts, Cambridge, Boston. And it was also accidentally our first base here in the US. Our company was in Boston. And when she finished, I thought, you know what, enough of the cold. I can do my business from everywhere in the world, in the US. I mean, it could be Seattle and Miami. Yes, Miami. So maybe you should know, I asked our general manager, decent, Boston, hey, what do you think of relocating to Miami? And he said, no way, no, we can't do that. And I can't come, he has children. I said, you know what, ask your kids, why shouldn't they want to go near to Disney World? So I said, come on, talk to them. And surprise, surprise, once Mickey was mentioned, they were convinced and we relocated. It was back in, I think, 2005. And since then, we're very happy in Miami.
So there's another question from an anonymous attendee. It's not a bad question, so I'll answer it. They have investments in North Miami. I'm not sure if they mean North Miami, the city, or in the northern part of Miami, and trying to accomplish and get our permits to start construction. We heard that city permit process will be speeded up, which actually was slow because of the disease. Can you give any information about it, or maybe authorities still working from home? Well, a big part of our business is still working from home, but it shouldn't slow us down per se. So if it's in North Miami, in the northern part of Miami, you can feel free to send me an email at fsuarez@miamigov.com, fsuarez@miamigov.com, and send me what we call the BD number, the processing number for the permit, and I'll get that over to the building department to see what are the holdups, if any. If it's in the city of North Miami, that's an entirely different city, and I'm not familiar with what is going on over there, but I'm hoping that they that they're able to come out of this. Smaller cities sometimes have a little bit of a harder time. They just don't have the same resources that bigger cities like us have. So I don't know how they're managing it.
I think there is a question, Mrs. Afsu, what would you recommend to people who consider investing in Miami? How do you see Miami in the radar of Turkish businesses? Well, would you recommend? Of course I would recommend. And well, actually it's next to Key West. So that's an answer for itself. But on the other hand, it is not only for the USA a good city, but for the whole Central and South America, it's a hub. So of course, some Spanish language skill will help, but also for the later expansion to Central and South America. And oh, by the way, Miami, people who maybe don't know so much in Turkey, Miami is a real cosmopolitan city. and therefore it feels like London or any bigger cities in the world. So newcomers feel right at home, and because everyone is a foreigner. I would say, therefore, Miami should be in the radar of Turkish businesses. And Mr. Mayor, Turkish businesses right now are expanding. We are expanding. I mean, when you look to the map, Turkey is right in the center, just in between Europe, Asia, and MENA, Mideast. And so we have to expand. And I believe Miami should be a good hub for us too.
I agree.
Anything else here? Okay. Oh, there is somebody who wants me to talk about the business. Well, what I am doing in the US, we are I'm leading the world's largest cracker and processor of hazelnuts, which still is in Turkish hands. And when I first had the idea to start supplying the US, it was back in '92. In the US, most of the people didn't know the name hazelnut. I'm not exaggerating, really. It was called filberts, and only the West Coast people knew it. And so now we come a long way since then, and surely companies like Ferrero, with brands like Nutella, Rocher, everybody knows them, helped us along. And so what I'm doing is I'm supplying all your confectionery business with hazelnuts. It's a good thing, though. And by the way, Mr. Mayor, during the pandemic, even now as we speak, health products, especially health food products, and hazelnuts is one of them, tree nuts like almonds, hazelnuts, pistachios, and walnuts, it's booming like crazy.
Yeah, I'm vegan, so I love obviously nuts are a big part of a vegan diet, and it's part of what I normally incorporate into my diet, so it's good stuff.
Okay. Anything? Do we have? I think there is.
I have an attendee raising his hand.
Yeah, there is somebody raising its hand. Ladies, can we do that? I don't know how to do that.
There we go. I think we got him in there.
Baton or?
Hello?
Yep.
Burç Bey. Here you go.
Lovely. I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to see my video because I don't know how to turn it on. But at least apparently you can hear me.
I can hear you.
But I found this excellent opportunity to at least show my face, which I couldn't succeed. But at least I'm targeting you with my voice. I wouldn't be able to really miss this opportunity to thank two people and two organizations who's making me make my job much easier. First and foremost, obviously, Mayor Suarez, thank you so much for taking your time. It's a very busy time of the year, and I'm sure you have lots of things in your hands, and you found not just time for us and for the audience. Mayor Suarez was yesterday again at another Zoom meeting with the Muslim community of Miami, South Florida, where he attended an online Zoom iftar event, which I really appreciated and respected. Thank you so much, Mayor. That was awesome. And this awesome is not a response to what you've told for me. And the second the institution is, of course, the city of Miami. I mean, I've been so much supported by all your staff. And I would like to thank your team in your presence for the support that they have been giving to the consulate. And certainly, I would like to mention Mr. Zapsu as the chair of the Florida chapter of TAİK. He has been an extreme support, and not only mentally, but also financially, I have to underline. So it has been a huge elder brother for us to be able to conduct how to do better business in South Florida. Thank you so much. And obviously TAİK, together with the whole team, starting from Mr. Yalçın'da, I'd like to thank all the team who has been so much helpful in all 3 events that we've done with them in Miami to expand Turkish Florida business. And I'll conclude by extending one invitation once again. You know, Mr. Zapsu mentioned about the image of Turkey and how to better this image in order to consider Turkey as a business partner. Well, that really has got something to do with interaction, as Mayor Suarez mentioned, and that interaction could well be supported by a visit, which I've been following for 2 years. I know the circumstances are not right, but I'm sure your followers, your constituency, your businessmen would have much better idea about how Turkey looks like when you eventually step your feet on Turkey. Please take this as another repetition of my invitations once everything is clear. Thank you.
And thank you, Consul. And we don't have to see you to know it's you with that distinct voice that you have. It's always evident the classiness of your voice and the way that you're able to articulate things and the nuance in what you do. You really are a credit to your government, and your government is very lucky. We were talking about that earlier, to have you. And you know, I've met we have the 3rd largest consular corps in the United States after Washington and New York. And I have to say that you've been one of the most consistent and certainly one of the most talented members of the consular corps that I've had an opportunity to interact with. So your country owes you a great debt.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Burç Bey. And Mr. Mayor, I don't want you held up from your morning coffee. It's, I think, 9 or 10 already there, and you shouldn't be. And thank you very much that you decorated your this place in your house, your cupboard, or wherever you are, in such a nice way. And
virtual.
Yes, that is that. So I want to finish with the thanks, and again, we would really invite you to Istanbul as soon as possible, as soon as you have time. I know it's terrible right now, but you should see my city too. It's and next we will hopefully in one of our next events in Miami within this year, we hopefully will see you too.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
And just one last answer to one question, which is Mehmet Akif sent, which is, do we have any incentive programs to encourage businesses to expand their operations in Miami? As you mentioned, you know, the Beacon Council, and you mentioned Enterprise Florida, which are 2 important. We have the Community Redevelopment Agency, which also helps in bringing business to Miami. And of course, construction and fast food chains are both major, businesses that we would certainly incentivize as much as we can.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.